Iceberg chart videos have been a hot topic on YouTube for quite a while now, and ever since I first started getting into lost media, I've wanted to do one of my own. But what would the topic be? Lost media, obviously. So I got to work on an iceberg. But then it hit me. I couldn't do this alone. It would be more fun with a partner or two, or 10. So I enlisted some friends to help me out. A real who's who of lost media YouTubers. So without any further ado, we proudly present to you the ultimate lost media iceberg.
A Day with SpongeBob. A Day with SpongeBob is a fake mockumentary, quote-unquote, created by the company Regal Films. The film first showed up to the public under an Amazon listing for the fake movie, which, by the way, is still up at the time of writing this. Right away from the cover of this DVD, you can already tell something is off. That's clearly not SpongeBob's pineapple, there's these fake reviews, there's this stock photo kid who can somehow breathe underwater, it's just a whole case all on its own. Well, when this started to grab more and more attention from people just browsing Amazon, a search was made and people began to try to track down this anomaly. That inevitably led down a strange rabbit hole with twists and turns, new friends, and crazy theories like money laundering. Just your average day with SpongeBob, huh? In the end, people were able to track down Lorenzo Hawley, a man who is supposedly behind this film, as well as someone who called themselves Mr. Orange, who debunked any sort of strange theory that came their way. Apparently, they are still looking to produce this movie with money from crowdfunding, however, its progress is unknown. The Crackmaster. Cracks, also known as The Crackmaster, was a short animated segment which aired on Sesame Street in 1975. If you're familiar with Sesame Street, you know that some of those early animated segments are a little odd. This short is no different, and now that it's been found, you can kind of see why. It starts off as a girl laying in bed looking up at the cracks on her wall. She sees animals in the cracks and starts to befriend them. My favorite is Crack Camel, thanks for asking. So this girl and the crack animals go to make a new friend, the Crack Master, who's really angry for some reason. But it's okay because he literally just dies right there. Literally just breaks into pieces. You'd think this would be some sort of horrific experience for the animals, but they just kind of continue along, ignoring that the Crackmaster just died. Yeah. In 2008, John Armand received a copy of the short after being lost since its last air date, which was May 2nd, 1980. Although it did air on the Mexican-Spanish Sesame Street Plaza Sésamo, I really hope I'm saying that right, in the mid-90s. While Armand had the copy, and although he was forbidden from releasing it, he did show the short to people in person, just never releasing it online. However, in 2013, Lost Media Wiki founder Kait was sent a copy by an anonymous source, and has since been posted online. It's still up for public viewing, by the way, so if you're looking for a trip, why don't you go check out those cracks. Subway Perfection ad. The Subway Perfection ad is one of the strangest pieces of lost media that, at first glance, sounds like a fake rumor. Honestly, when you hear of a biblical Subway ad where a bald guy hungers for perfection, what do you think of? Yeah, exactly. So this piece of lost media was originally brought to light by Baron von Brunk. It was a local Pennsylvanian Subway commercial which depicted two men in an all-white setting. One of them, a bald man with a really cool mustache, sits next to a man who's some sort of divine depiction and is only referred to as the Great Seer. The bald man says that he hungers for perfection. The Great Seer advertises the new Subway sub, and the bald guy eats the sub horizontally, which I never want to see again. Originally, some people believed that it could have been some sort of other sandwich chain company, considering that the commercial was said to be really low budget. And which made this search so interesting was how obscure it was, and how it was local, meaning it was harder to find versus something mainstream. It was also before the time of YouTube, so it wasn't accessible online. There's not too much to be said about it, to be honest. The search was the Lost Media Wiki's On the Hunt for, and it was found in April 2021 through an Instagram post. Funny enough, the commercial had been posted completely coincidentally back in January, and honestly, I have no idea how people were able to find this gem. Nonetheless, pretty interesting. Crybaby Lane. Nickelodeon's Crybaby Lane was a comedy horror TV film that aired for the Halloween season. Airing on October 28, 2000, the film never received any home media releases or even aired outside of the United States. The plot involves two boys trying to impress some girls by performing a seance in a graveyard. Yes, the youth. So during the seance, they reawaken the evil soul of a Siamese twin. Yeah, so this evil spirit can turn anything it touches evil, so it just basically goes around the town turning things evil, making the property value in the city plummet. So instead of calling for some sort of spiritual help, like a priest, the kids embark to Crybaby Lane to defeat this evil. So one of the boys, Carl, ends up getting possessed as well, and his brother Andrew has to cut the root out of the heart of the good Siamese twin to end this spooky movie. I'll be honest, I've never actually seen it. Shout out to the person who wrote the plot synopsis on the wiki. Yeah, so apparently a lot of people were saying that this was too controversial and too scary, and thus Nickelodeon never aired it afterwards. In 2011, Reddit user Fire Salad Peach claimed to have a VHS recording of the film from the premiere, and thus released the film on YouTube. It's believed that this sudden spike of interest grabbed the attention of Nickelodeon, who, on October 31st of the same year, re-aired the TV movie. Mickey Mouse in Vietnam. Mickey Mouse in Vietnam was a lost silent film depicting Mickey Mouse fighting during the Vietnam War. The film, created in 1968, was a social commentary about the ongoing war in Vietnam and the protests surrounding it. While the short itself was not produced by Disney, it featured iconic character Mickey Mouse enlisting in the military and being sent to Vietnam. In case you didn't know, the conflict of the Vietnam War lasted between 1955 and 1975. Thus, this short was produced during the time of the conflict. Upon arrival in Vietnam, Mickey Mouse sets out into the battlefield, where he is almost immediately killed. Despite having a helmet on, Mickey suffers a bullet to the head. He collapses to the ground with a smile on his face. The smile fades to a frown as our beloved cartoon mouse bleeds out. The short ends. The commentary here, the symbolism, is really powerful for the protest against the war. The short was only shown to select people who were directly associated with the creators of the film, and thus not seen publicly. That was until 2010, when it was shown at the Sarajevo Film Festival. I really hope I'm saying that right. However, it wasn't available for public viewing. In 2013, YouTube user Ebed Higgins, I really hope I'm also pronouncing that right, had uploaded a copy of the short with System of a Down's Soldier Side intro playing over it, but this video has since been removed due to copyright concerns. Then, in 2018, the complete short featuring the original soundtrack was uploaded to YouTube by user CDCB2 and has thus stayed online. Rhapsody Street Kids. This is honestly my favorite thing ever. In 2002, the world was blessed with Rhapsody Street Kids Believe in Santa, a musical Christmas special developed by Wolf Tracer Studios Incorporated and J. Rose Productions, airing on WB just in time for the holiday season. Yeah, this thing actually aired on TV. This gem blessed us all on Christmas Day, no less, and was meant to jumpstart the franchise known as Rhapsody Street Kids. It sucked. It's basically about a spoiled rotten girl learning the true meaning of Christmas through sentimental gifts from her classmate. Hijinks ensue, and thus we get this wonderful Christmas movie teaching us about the value of one's ability to give. Did you know Mark Hamill was in this, by the way? Yeah, legendary actor Mark Hamill was in this atrocity. I have no idea how they were able to pull this off. Well, the creator that had made this had never actually even checked in on the animators that were doing this work, so I guess there really wasn't any room for improvement. I mean, the cake is already baked. You can't just go back and add the eggs now, you know? They had a budget of $500,000 US. The movie was animated in a program called 3D Choreographer, which, if you just Google some of the stuff it makes, it's an interesting program. It never aired after 2000, never saw any home releases, and didn't resurface until 2015. Founder of the Lost Media Wiki, Kait, had obtained a copy from the producer and uploaded it to Vimeo that year. It's strange how a lost, horrible Christmas movie garnered so much attention, but nonetheless, it's a lost media gem.
Snuffy's parents get a divorce. Sesame Street is no stranger to tackling harder topics such as death, marriage, birth, and even adoption. After all, kids deserve to learn about these topics at an early age so that they can understand them better. Rather inspired by current national happenings of the time, or events transpiring in the life of the show's staff, tackling subjects such as these helped elevate Sesame Street to much more than just a simple children's program. But even Sesame Street has its limits. In 1992, the crew behind the show wanted to tackle divorce as the big subject of the season, resulting in an episode in which the parents of Snuffleupagus and his sister Alice get a divorce. The episode was scheduled to air on April 10th, 1992 as episode number 2985. However, the episode faced scrutiny from the advisory board, who felt that the script needed to more heavily emphasize the fact that arguments do not automatically end in divorce. So, the script was rewritten to include a scene in which show mainstay Gordon reassures Big Bird, Telly, and Elmo just because parents have an argument or get upset with each other doesn't mean they're getting a divorce or that they don't love each other anymore. Shortly after, the episode was filmed and then screened before an audience of 60 children. The results proved negative to say the least, with the children not understanding the message, with some believing that Snuffy's father ran away and that he and his sister would never see him again, and others believing that arguments did mean divorce. After the results from the screening came back, research developer Valeria Lovelace suggested scrapping the episode and going back to the drawing board. For years, all we had from the episode was a single screenshot from the episode, published in the 40 Years of Life on the Street book, released for the show's 40th anniversary in 2009. In November 2019, a scene from the unaired episode was screened publicly for the first time at the Sesame Street Lost and Found event at the Museum of the Moving Image, with footage later being used in the 2021 documentary 50 Years of Sunny Days. As it stands, I don't believe we'll ever see the full episode get released, with the best we can hope for being the occasional snippet being shown at an event. All That. All That was a sketch comedy series that began airing on Nickelodeon in 1994. The show ran until 2005 and consisted of 178 episodes. The show was a massive success and gave rise to stars like Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell. Today, 20 episodes of the series are incomplete, while 29 episodes are completely missing, with the 12th episode of Season 10, featuring Brie Larson, remaining unaired in the US. With various lost episodes popping up online over the years, it stands to reason that these episodes will show up one day as well. Kappa Mikey Pilot. Airing on the Nicktoons network from 2006 to 2008, Kappa Mikey was a show that focused on teenager Mikey Simon winning a trip to Japan to star in an anime series. However, before the show found its way to Nicktoons network, the show was being conceived for MTV. A pilot was made at this stage and was geared towards older audiences with more adult humor. MTV would inevitably pass on the show, and the pilot was never shown publicly. That is, until July 26, 2017, when the show's executive producer, Sergei Aniskov, uploaded the full pilot to his YouTube channel. The pilot is low quality and uses temporary voice tracks, but it's the full original pilot. However, on March 29, 2018, a second pilot was confirmed to exist when it was uploaded by YouTube user Team Not Crash. This pilot was confirmed as real by the show's creator and used a different art style and voice cast from the MTV pilot. As of this writing, both pilots can still be found on YouTube. Electric Piper. The Electric Piper is an animated made-for-TV movie that aired on Nickelodeon in early 2003. The film was directed by Rami Mazquiz and written by Chalk's own creator Bill Burnett. The voice cast included Rodney Dangerfield, Rob Schneider, and George Segal. Based on the tale of the Pied Piper, the story centers around a guitarist named Sly, modeled after Jimi Hendrix, who uses his music to get rid of rats who are invading a suburban town called Hamlin. When the mayor doesn't give Sly his reward, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, he takes his revenge by convincing the children of the town to run away and join him on a mountain. After airing a handful of times on Nickelodeon, the film quietly vanished and was never aired again. And due to Nickelodeon's legal department at the time fearing that the music in the movie was too close to the actual songs they were referencing, it never received a VHS or DVD release. However, in late August 2016, Lost Media Wiki user Stuart Is Me got a hold of the film and uploaded it to MySpleen, while another user later uploaded it to YouTube. As of today, the film can be viewed in its entirety online. Kingdom of the Sun. As I touched upon previously in my 4 canceled Disney villains that didn't make the cut video, Kingdom of the Sun was the original version of the 2000 Disney film The Emperor's New Groove. The movie was going to be a traditional Disney musical centered around an emperor named Mako, who meets a llama herder named Pacha, only to discover that they look identical. Finding this out, the two switch places in a manner similar to The Prince and the Pauper. Meanwhile, the evil sorceress Yzma plans to summon the Incan god Supe to block out the sun forever, as the sun gives her wrinkles. Following the success Elton John had with the Lion King soundtrack, musician Sting was hired to write several songs for the film. Unfortunately, the film faced several story issues and just wasn't coming together properly. With the film coming closer and closer to its summer 2000 release date, it was clear that something needed to be done. The release date would be pushed to December 2000 and the story overhauled, with all the musical numbers removed. The film released as we know it today as The Emperor's New Groove on December 15th, 2000. With nearly 25% of the original film fully animated, who knows if we'll ever see it. The closest will likely come is an unofficial documentary on the film titled The Sweatbox, which documents the last days of the original film's production. It can be found online. Hitogata. Also known as white humanoids, Hitogata is a mysterious lost commercial that has baffled the internet for years now. It all started on an anonymous Japanese message board known as 2channel. When discussing creepy commercials, a user posted the following: "There was this terribly scary commercial, and I still have it constantly left in my memory. There were two white human figures depicted against a black backdrop, and this noise going gum gum kept ringing. What's sure is the part that went, every 2 seconds, a man dies on Earth. So after the noise is repeated twice, one of the figures disappear. On the next instant, the human figure returns back to its old place, and now it's the other one that disappears. It was a commercial of only that repeating over and over for an extended time." Multiple people claim to have seen the commercial, though reports often vary. It's still unknown what this supposed commercial was advertising, with people believing it could have been advertising soap, jeans, a drugstore, or perhaps the most popular and believable theory, a railroad safety PSA. Who knows if we'll ever get to the bottom of this particular mystery. Newt. Originally announced in 2008 for release in 2011, but later delayed to 2012 before being cancelled entirely by early 2010, Newt would have been Pixar's next movie after Toy Story 3 and Cars 2. Said to be directed by Gary Rydstrom, director of Pixar shorts such as Lifted and Hawaiian Vacation, Newt would have centered on the last remaining male and female blue-footed newts on the planet being forced together to save the species. The caveat being that they can't stand each other. The film's plot is compared a lot to Blue Sky Studios' Rio, released in 2011, which centers on Blue, the last male Sphinx macaw, who needs to mate with Jewel, the last female Sphinx macaw, in order to save their species. Sound familiar? Well, that's because it's the same plot as Newt. Though, when asked about the film in a 2014 interview, Pixar president Ed Catmull stated that Newt simply just wasn't working in pre-production. Newt would at one point be passed on to Pixar veteran Pete Docter, the mind behind such classics such as Monsters Inc. and Up, and when offered the film, Docter instead pitched an idea that Pixar thought was better. That idea would end up becoming Inside Out, thus putting a definitive end to Newt. London After Midnight. London After Midnight is a silent horror film from 1927 starring Lon Chaney, perhaps best known for his role as the Phantom in 1925's The Phantom of the Opera. The film centers on Sir Roger Balfour, a mansion owner, being found dead, with Professor Edward Burke sent to investigate the incident. Years later, the house is old and decrepit, with dark mysteries lurking inside. The mansion now belongs to an odd man who just so happens to be named Roger Balfour. Professor Burke is once again tasked to attend to the supposed vampires that reside within the residence. However, it turns out that Burke is Balfour in disguise. Variety at the time thought that the other actors weren't interesting enough to carry the film, and that the film would sell solely on Lon Chaney's name alone. The film went on to perform moderately. Supposedly, only one copy of the film existed, and in 1965 is believed to have been destroyed in a large MGM studio fire. The occurrence and specifics of this fire are still debated to this day, with some stating that it could have been an electrical fire. However, production stills from the film ended up surviving over the years, and in 2002, film preservationist Rick Schmidlin was commissioned by Turner Classic Movies to produce a reconstruction of the film using these same production stills. This reconstruction can still be viewed online today, but the original version of the film is likely lost forever. Chris Farley's Shrek. DreamWorks' first animated feature, Shrek, took the world by storm in 2001, in part thanks to Mike Myers' superb performance as the titular character, the ogre Shrek, who wants nothing more than to be left alone in his swamp. However, Mike Myers was not the first actor selected for the role, but rather fellow Saturday Night Live cast member Chris Farley. Sometime around 1995, Farley was cast as the lead role, with Janeane Garofalo cast as Princess Fiona. It is said that Farley completed around 85% of his dialogue before his untimely passing on December 23, 1997, but an exact percentage has never been released, with some sources claiming his dialogue could be as much as 95% completed. Mean Girls DS. Few lost media topics were encased in such mystery and intrigue as the once fabled Mean Girls game for the Nintendo DS. Was it real? Was it a hoax? Who made it? Why was Lindsay Lohan not on the cover? These were all questions that plagued the lost media community for years. Allegedly released in Europe on September 11, 2009, with a North American release for 2010 cancelled, Mean Girls DS was a tie-in game to the 2004 comedy Mean Girls, but no evidence of it ever being released could be found. There were a few listings on foreign game sites, as well as what were apparently a few screenshots from the game, but most people considered it to be a hoax. That is, until 2021, when YouTube user Bob Dunga uploaded a documentary on the game, featuring never-before-seen gameplay, as well as uploading a full playthrough of the game. Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a popular British science fiction show about the titular Doctor and the many adventures he goes on through space and time, often coming across aliens and other creatures. First airing in 1963, the show has become a household name for many people, and is still going strong today thanks to a revival which started in 2005. However, out of the 253 episodes from the program's first 6 seasons, out of 26 total seasons in the classic era, 97 episodes are missing today. The BBC, who produced and distributed the show, had a habit in the 60s and 70s of deleting old archived shows for many reasons, be it lack of space or other. Because of this, 26 stories are incomplete, with 44 episodes missing from William Hartnell's run as the first Doctor, and 53 episodes missing from Patrick Troughton's run as the second Doctor. Various lost episodes have been found and recovered over the years, with other methods like animation being used to recreate the episodes. While it's unlikely every single episode will ever be found, I don't think that recreating the majority of these episodes in some way is entirely outside the realm of possibility.
Freaky Flickers. Freaky Flickers is a lost CGI film that was based on a toy line of the same name, and followed Arg the Pirate on his quest to acquire the Golden Flicker. It began production in 2005 as a television series, but changed direction to be a movie several years later in 2009. The entire production was handled by Carrie Howe, and had a budget of $250,000. Months into its production, and after months of work, Howe left the film with his editor, only to find out that the creator of the toy line had come into the office and stolen every asset of the film overnight. Only trailers and one scene from the film are all that's ever resurfaced, and it's not known what happened to the stolen content. Pink Morning Cartoon. Lots of people have their own personal memories of strange television programs they might have seen growing up, or some kind of eerie short that they only have vague recollections of. However, in the case of Pink Morning Cartoon, we have much more than that. This show, officially titled TV8 Kids Fun Festival, was a program that aired locally in the late 90s, created by Ella Flowers, who was the reverend of a local church. It wouldn't be until the late 2000s when a clip of the show found its way to YouTube, where questions surrounding its origin were brought up. This led to a months-long search on the Lost Media Wiki forums, as well as the Pink Morning Cartoon Discord server, in attempts to find who created this short and what its purpose was. Once newspaper articles had been discovered, and a connection to Ella's daughter was made, it became clear what this unsettling show actually was. Apparently, the master tapes were destroyed long ago, and it's not known how many episodes are still in existence, either in storage or locally in the community. Sonic Xtreme. Sonic Xtreme is one of those games with an unfortunate development history that prevented it from releasing as intended. Originally planned for release on the Sega Saturn in 1996, it would have featured 360-degree levels seen through a fisheye filter, giving Sonic the ability to wrap around levels at high speeds. The game went through many changes in development, delays, and even systems it was being developed for, which added to complications when it was being made. The project was ultimately cancelled, and its difficult development has added to its legacy, though many assets from the game have resurfaced over the years, including trailers, sprites, and even several builds. Fans have attempted to rebuild the game in attempts to give us an idea of what it could have been like had it released or been finished. The Stolen Original Food Fight. If you're in the Lost Media scene or not, there's a pretty high chance you've heard of Food Fight to some extent. It's a movie with a similar concept to Toy Story about a supermarket that comes to life after the store closes. It was panned for its low budget and had a rocky development cycle, but years before it finally came out, the project looked quite different. The film's concept began in 1997 and entered production in 2002, acquiring a huge budget and leading investors to believe the studio threshold could be the next Pixar. However, this is when the film took a turn for the worse, as in December of 2002, hard drives containing the film were allegedly stolen. Most of the budget had already been spent, and outdated software was used to salvage the project. Later, it was discovered that the hard drives weren't stolen, but intentionally deleted. Satellaview games. Lost video games are one of the most popular categories of lost media to search for, and it goes without saying that the games which used to be readily available, but no longer are, means the search for them is feasible. This perfectly describes the Satellaview. This allowed players the ability to download games and other media through satellite broadcasts, and has led to a whole world of lost media, which searchers are currently attempting to find. Over several years, Nintendo would most notably release new versions of their games, such as F-Zero, with the addition of never-before-seen tracks. These special features are something the community wants to preserve, which means having to seek out the Satellaview carts used to store the games and test them in a player to see what's on them. One of the most difficult parts of this process is not knowing what's on the carts unless they've been tested, but even then, they often go for quite a lot of money. CN Power Play games. If you were a fan of Cartoon Network back in the day and frequently checked out their website, then there's a pretty high chance you found their games section and had a few favorites. I'm sure when you were playing these games as a kid, and even nowadays, you might not realize many of these games have become lost media, or that anyone is even attempting to find them. One of the more famous examples of these games was called Bowl Ed Over, which is an Ed, Edd n Eddy bowling themed game. It boasted 3D graphics and some nice artwork reminiscent of the show. A demo link to the executable of the game was found on the Wayback Machine, and eventually the game became playable again without time restrictions. These games ended up becoming lost in the first place as a result of Shockwave games becoming less popular over the years, and like most outdated content, Cartoon Network phasing them out and shutting down the service. Cricket and Clover. Panic at the Disco rose to huge popularity around 2015 with the release of Death of a Bachelor, but their history goes back nearly a decade. During this early era, when the band was still figuring out what they wanted their sound to be, a lot more experimentation went on, which led to a famous piece of lost media within the fandom, Cricket and Clover, or the Cabin Album for short. This creation was the result of the band having locked themselves in a cabin in the mountains to immerse themselves in the project. The album was said to be a concept album and utilize bizarre instrumentation while maintaining a fantasy-style vibe. Unfortunately, this whole process didn't go well for the band, as being away from civilization for so long started taking a toll on them, and eventually it was decided to scrap the album and start from scratch. Some elements and lyrics from Cricket and Clover made their way into Pretty Odd, but for the most part, we've never heard the true incarnation of what Cricket and Clover was supposed to be, as the masters have never resurfaced. Me and My Friends. If you grew up in the late 2000s, then chances are you watched the Backyardigans on Nick Jr. back in the day. This cartoon, about 5 animal friends who use their imagination to go on adventures, was very popular and led to 4 seasons, toys, a live stage show, and much more. However, before all of that took shape, the series was going in a completely different direction. In 1998, at the Nickelodeon studios in Florida, a pilot was filmed live on their stage called Me and My Friends, which featured full-body costumed actors and physical sets. Unfortunately, this pilot was rejected and the project was shelved until being reworked into the CGI show we know it as today. So what became of this early iteration? Well, it's never been seen by the public, except for a few pictures and a short video clip. It's not known how many copies of the pilot may have left Nickelodeon, which means it comes down to whether or not they'll ever release it. Sonic 1 Tokyo Game Show. When it comes to video game betas and early content surrounding the most popular franchises, there seems to be a deeper fascination about where it all began. For Sonic the Hedgehog, that predates his 1991 debut and takes us to the Tokyo Toy Show in 1990, where the game was shown off for the first time. Several magazine screenshots exist which depict an early Green Hill Zone, an unused enemy, and background graphics that differ quite a bit from the final game. However, this is about all that's left from this early build of the game, because to this day, it's never resurfaced. Not only does there exist no authentic video of the game in action, but the build itself has been missing for decades. In an interview with Yuji Naka, it was revealed that this demo was planned to be included in Sonic Mega Collection as a bonus game, but it never happened because Sega lost the ROM. It's believed that since Sega doesn't even know where the game is, it might be gone forever. Slamfest 99. Back in 1999, Nintendo held a promotional event to help promote the launch of Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64. This event was called Slamfest 99, a wrestling match between costumed Nintendo characters who battled inside a boxing ring. It took place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas and was live streamed over the internet. However, no surviving video has resurfaced. Several fan sites and gaming websites reported on the event's existence back in the day, with one even having its own collection of screenshots, but no one involved in its production has any content in their archives. It's believed the companies involved in the streaming process are the last sources who might have a copy of the recording in their archives. Jimmy Tushu's pilot. Adult iterations of shows that are made for kids is always an interesting area of lost media to explore, and Jimmy Two Shoes is a great example of that. The show debuted in the late 2000s on Teletoon and features the main character, Jimmy, spreading happiness through the town of Miseryville in a variety of wacky situations. However, this concept loosely connects to the early iteration of the show that wasn't so kid-friendly. In the pilot of the series, Jimmy was killed and accidentally sent to hell, where he spreads happiness, not knowing where he really is. This pilot was made in 2006, but has been missing for decades. Series co-creator Edward Kay states the pilot was funded by investors of the show, so ownership of the cartoon was given to them. No one from the cast or crew of the series has the pilot, and it's unknown who these investors were or whether or not they still have a creation from so long ago. It's also possible Teletoon would know where to find a copy, but the search for this piece of lost media continues. Blueprints. Blue's Clues is a series with no need for introduction, as back in the day, and even nowadays, it's remained one of the most iconic kids shows of all time, and continues to air on Nick Jr. However, For as iconic as several elements of the series are, there was an era when nothing was set in stone, and it takes us back to the summer of 1995, when the pilot of the series was filmed. It was titled Blueprints, and features some differences from the final show, such as Mr. Salt having a Brooklyn accent instead of a French one, and Steve's iconic shirt being red instead of green. This pilot was only shown to a test audience of preschoolers to see how well the show would be received, and after those changes were made, it hit television shortly after. To this day, the full pilot has never been released. However, Nickelodeon has constantly teased clips on Twitter, proving they do still have a full copy and can release it whenever they want. American Dog. Bolt is one of those Disney movies that most people seem to forget until they're reminded of it. However, that might not have been the case if its earlier iteration entered production as intended. American Dog is the precursor to Bolt, and would have involved the main dog character named Henry, who stars in his own TV show when something goes wrong and he finds himself stranded in the Nevada desert. Away from the scripted life of his TV show, Henry must find a way home through the terrain of the real world. There were a few characters he would meet along the way, and several pieces of concept art and test footage have leaked over the years. Unfortunately for this film, Disney decided the concept itself was too bold at the time, and after rejecting the executive's idea to fix the script, director Chris Sanders was kicked off the team and Bolt took shape as we know it today. Johnny Bravo. For a popular cartoon that got a handful of seasons on Cartoon Network back in the day, it's surprising to hear that there's so much Johnny Bravo lost media. For starters, there's JBVO, a live cartoon request show that was hosted by Johnny himself and encouraged viewers to call in and talk to the man live on TV. This series was aired weekly, and reruns were very scarce, as to not break the illusion of it being a live talk show. Over the years, some content has resurfaced, but it's far from a complete series archived. Something even more obscure that Johnny hosted was Toon FM, a JBVO spin-off block that aired exclusively in European countries. Despite reusing assets from the original iteration, there's a lot that was added, including Brack as co-host, and guest characters making appearances. This show is even harder to find than JBVO, with several dubs having existed and recordings from that era not being common. Finally, there's what's arguably the most famous piece of Johnny Bravo lost media, Meso Blues. It was created in the early 1990s by Van Partible as his senior thesis project. This was reworked into the final show, but the short has never been seen in full. Partible is against its full release for how poorly animated he believes it is. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood. For as popular as JoJo is nowadays, you might be surprised to hear that there's any lost media from the series at all. However, there most definitely is. Back in 2007, before its international popularity, and before media preservation was more well known, a film released in Japanese theaters only called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood. This film adapted the first story arc of the manga, and in a lot of ways looks quite different from the JoJo series we're used to in the modern day. Contrary to popular belief, the movie was received quite well and had a typical run in theaters of a couple months before being replaced by newer movies. However, it never received a home media release and to this day cannot be viewed in full. The studio that animated this movie lost the rights to the series before it could be put onto home media, and the modern adaptations of the manga have made a re-release seem obsolete to the companies involved. Only a handful of scenes from the film can be viewed at this time.
The Downer, original version. The Season 3 episode of The Amazing World of Gumball starts off with Gumball waking up in a bad mood. The Wattersons try to lift Gumball's spirits, but this only results in him becoming more annoyed and wishing for his family to go away. In an instant, his entire family and the rest of Elmore disappear. Gumball soon regrets the wish he made, as the darkness begins to consume him. The episode ends on a light-hearted comedic note, revealing that the darkness and emptiness was all in Gumball's head, and everyone was there all along. However, the supposed original version of this episode was much darker. There were rumors that the original version was completed and aired on television once, only to be rewritten and edited for all future airings. However, this was confirmed to be false, as the changes for the original darker version of the Downer occurred during the storyboarding process. When asked about why the episode was rewritten on Twitter, creator Ben Clay said that the episode started out too dark. As of now, the details of the original draft are unknown to the public. A Tin Toy Christmas. A Tin Toy Christmas is an unproduced television special that was intended to be a follow-up of the original 1988 Pixar short, Tin Toy. This half-hour special would have revolved around Tinny, the toy from the original short, who was part of a toy line in the 1940s that wasn't doing so well financially. This caused Tinny and his friends to be put away in storage. Many years later, Tinny wakes up and finds himself in a huge store during the modern Christmas season. Tinny then goes on an adventure to find his friends, and on the way meets a sarcastic dummy, who was looking for an owner. The main reason why this special was cancelled was so that the production of Toy Story could be the main focus at the studio. There were several concepts and ideas that were intended for a Tin Toy Christmas that were instead used in Toy Story. One of the major ones being the dummy that Tinny meets, who would ultimately become Woody. The concept of a toy being put into storage for years was explored with Jessie in Toy Story 2. Me and My Shadow. Me and My Shadow was a DreamWorks animated movie that was announced in December of 2010. The film was going to be about a guy named Stanley Grubb working a dull and repetitive day job. Stanley's shadow introduces him to the shadow world in an attempt to add some interest in Stanley's life. A crime in the shadow world is then brought to their attention, and they then go on an adventure to solve the crime and stop the film's main villain. The film was originally planned to be released in 2013, however the studio's main focus at the time was Mr. Peabody and Sherman. This caused Me and My Shadow to be pushed back to a 2014 release. Due to the delays in Mr. Peabody and Sherman, that film instead got the 2014 release, resulting in Me and My Shadow no longer having an official release date. Mr. Peabody and Sherman turned out to be a financial failure for DreamWorks. This caused many animators to be fired and several films to get cancelled. That included Me and My Shadow. An attempt was made to revive the production of the film in 2015, but this was short-lived and the film then was cancelled again in 2016. A few unfinished clips of Me and My Shadow have surfaced online. Ruby Dung. Ruby Dung was a game created by Notch before he made the final version of Minecraft. The game was heavily influenced by Dwarf Fortress and never made it far into development. Some of the textures that were used in the later version of Ruby Dung were used in the early version of Minecraft. This includes the grass and the cobblestone. Aside from a few screenshots, Ruby Dung was never made available to the public. Jason Todd Lives. During the 4-part Batman storyline, A Death in the Family, Jason Todd's Robin gets beaten to death by Joker. In the previous issue, there was an option for fans to call the number at the end to vote on whether Jason Todd would live or die, and fans ultimately voted to have the character killed off. This would suggest that if fans were to vote for Jason Todd to live, that there would be an alternate unreleased comic. Fans rumored that regardless of the outcome of the vote, Jason Todd would have died anyway, even going so far as to speculate that DC staff members were calling in order to vote for his death. DC has been denying these rumors since they began, but it wasn't until the release of Batman Annual 25, where they featured Batman with Jason Todd, who was still alive. According to DC, this was the only completed page of the comic. Batman Fights Dracula. Released in 1967, Batman Fights Dracula was a fan-made comedic parody film made by a team in the Philippines. The film revolved around mad scientist, Dr. Zorba, who resurrected Dracula in order to control him to finally beat his nemesis Batman. Aside from a few screenshots online, this movie is completely unavailable and is considered lost. Nasrudin. The Thief and the Cobbler, also known as The Princess and the Cobbler or Arabian Night depending on the version you watch, was a 1993 animated adventure fantasy film. This film is most notable for being in development from 1964 all the way to 1993, which is just a little under 30 years in development. Early on in development, the film was titled Nasrudin and was based on 2 books, The Incomparable Nasrudin Mullah and The Pleasantries of the Incomparable Nasrudin Mullah. 3 hours of the film were finally completed in the early 1970s. However, much of the film was reworked for reportedly having poor structure. There is still footage of the film that has yet to be released in its completed form. Burger King CDI Training. Burger King CDI Training was supposedly an interactive training video experience that would run on CD Interactive. This game was allegedly tested in various Burger King locations across the United States throughout the 1990s. As of now, the existence of the interactive CD is unconfirmed and was only mentioned by a commenter on YouTube and in 2 articles stating that the ROM was in testing. YouTube user Michelle L. commented that no one seems to remember the game and they wanted someone to review it. One of the articles that mentioned Burger King CDI was from the Orlando Business Journal, published in December of 1996, stating that the game would be tested around 9,000 different Burger King locations before officially being released in 1997. The second article that mentioned the CD was published by the Irish Times in early 1997. It was reported that the game was already being used in select Burger King locations, and it would become more widespread in the coming months. However, this never happened, and it's unknown if any locations have the game or if it even exists at all. Cigarettes and Valentines. Cigarettes and Valentines is a Green Day album from the early 2000s that was never fully released. Recorded in 2003, the album was intended to be a follow-up to their album Warning, which was released in 2000. The recordings were reportedly stolen, which, according to the band, was a blessing in disguise because Cigarettes and Valentines wasn't quite to the standard that Green Day was. The 5 confirmed songs for the album included Cigarettes and Valentines, Too Much Too Soon, Waste Away, Sleepyhead, and Drop Out. Mike Dirnt, the bassist, revealed that backup recordings were made, but they weren't the same as the originals, so those ones still remained unreleased. In 2016, the band talked more about the lost album, saying that the mixes for the songs were recovered, but it's still unlikely that they will be released, as according to Dirnt, the band tends to look forward rather than back. Garfield, The Lost Levels. Garfield The Lost Levels is a set of exclusive levels from the 1995 game Garfield Caught in the Act. The levels could only be downloaded via the Sega Channel, which was a paid service. The lost levels included Bonehead the Barbarian, a Viking level, Slobbin Hood, a forest-themed Robin Hood level, and a potential train segment that was cut from the Casablanca level in the Genesis release. As of now, the game has yet to be released online, and all that is available are a few screenshots of Slobbin Hood and Bonehead the Barbarian. Double Dare. Double Dare was a Nickelodeon game show that involved kids as game contestants going through obstacle courses. Initially, Double Dare aired for 482 episodes from 1986 through 1993, and came back a few times, once in the early 2000s and again in the late 2010s. However, as of now, only 455 of the original episodes are available to watch. 17 of 40 episodes of the 1987 season of the show are considered lost. Part of the 1987 episode, titled Man in a Boat, is available on the Kids Classics compilation tape from 1988. The audio for this episode was uploaded to Dailymotion in December of 2020. Special episodes centering around the NBA and Clarissa Explains It All were available to watch on Dailymotion, but have since been removed in December of 2018. As of now, Double Dare is available to watch on Paramount+, but unfortunately the missing episodes are still not available through the service. 64DD games. In an attempt to keep up with the 5th generation consoles of Sega and Sony, Nintendo released the Nintendo 64 disk drive. It was released in Japan in 1996 and was a huge commercial failure, only selling 15,000 units in total. The commercial failure of the Nintendo 64 disk drive led to many titles either being reworked for other Nintendo consoles at the time, or just being cancelled altogether. These titles included the following: Emperor of the Jungle, which would have been based off of the manga Jungle Emperor Leo, also known as Kimba the Lion, which was an adventure-style game. Desert Island 64, which was to be an RPG where the player was stranded on a desert island and had to interact with their environment in order to survive. Fire Emblem, Maiden of Darkness, and Earthbound 64 were reworked into Fire Emblem, The Binding Blade, and Mother 3 for the Game Boy Advance respectively. Cabbage was a codename for a game similar to the popular Tamagotchi at the time, and had elements and concepts that were later worked to fit into Nintendogs and Animal Crossing. Other titles included Rev Limit, which was to be a racing game, Super Mario RPG 2, which was meant to be a sequel to the Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, Super Mario Disc version, also referred to as Super Mario 64 DD, Diablo, Famicom Classics Volume 1, Mario Paint 64, Simcopter, and other Mario-oriented art games. Earthbound 64. Earthbound 64 was a title that was originally intended to be for the Nintendo 64, but was developed into what would later be Mother 3 for the Game Boy Advance, released in 2006. Mother 3 had a long 12 years in development, which began shortly after the Japanese release of its predecessor, Mother 2, which was released in the late 90s. Soon after development of Earthbound 64 began, the title shifted to be a 64DD release. Earthbound 64 faced many challenges, one of the main ones being that it was originally supposed to fit on a zip file, but now had to fit onto a ROM cartridge, and this ultimately led to its initial cancellation in the year 2000. The demo was made playable in Space World 1999, and those who played it seemed to really enjoy it. In 2003, it was confirmed that Mother 3 was in development for the Game Boy Advance, and it was later released in 2006. The final Game Boy Advance game and the demo for the N64 game shared the same general plot, with major differences being the character designs and the fact that Mother 3 was in 2D and the demo was in 3D. Today, there are still rumors claiming that certain fans own demo copies of Earthbound 64. However, these claims have never been proven. It was confirmed by Brendan Stetcher, who is the only foreign playtester for the game, that a copy of the demo does exist, and he believes that if it's not still in the possession of Brownie Brown, that it's been transferred to either HAL Laboratories or Nintendo. Dora the Explorer, Original Pilot. Dora the Explorer is a long-running Nick Jr. animated series that aired from 2000 through 2019, along with several spin-offs that were produced during its time on the air. The lost 1999 pilot has yet to be released. However, in August of 2018, the final minute and 18 seconds of the pilot were found on the Funimation website, which gives us a good idea of what the characters originally looked like. Black Cauldron, Deleted Scenes. The Black Cauldron is a Disney animated film that was released in 1985. Prior to being released in theaters, the film was shown to a test audience, and because of the film being darker compared to previous Disney films, certain scenes of the movie caused negative reactions from some viewers. This led to Jeffrey Katzenberg ordering that parts of the film be edited and cut, removing 12 minutes of the film in total. It's believed that the producer of the film, Joe Hale, owns the full uncut version of the Black Cauldron, but he has yet to release it to the public. Many also believe that the deleted scenes are currently being stored at either Disney Studios or at Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Eric Andre Show Demo Tape. The Eric Andre Show is an American sketch comedy show that premiered on May 20, 2012. The show is a parody of low-budget talk shows. It stars Eric Andre as himself, comedian Hannibal Buress, and Blandable, played by James Hosley. In 2009, Eric Andre and a few friends made a demo tape to pitch to TV networks. A lot of TV networks didn't accept it until Eric Andre pitched the series to Adult Swim, who picked up the series after seeing the demo. The only known footage of this pilot consists of some clips used in the first season of the show and on the show Conan. The two sketches online follow a Civil War reenactment and Eric Andre dressing up as Ronald McDonald. The pilot received a mention before the premiere of the first season, quoting, "The show you are about to watch began life back in 2009 as a demo tape. Eric spent a year learning Final Cut Pro to edit it. He shopped his talk show to many networks. They said it was too weird, low budget, or public access for air. We saw it and said make more. Please, here's the Eric Andre Show." A few pieces of the pilot were also seen in the special made for Season 5 titled The Making of Season 5 at the Adult Swim Festival. Get Your Free TBS. Get Your Free TBS is a tech demo that was shown off at SIGGRAPH 2000 and SIGGRAPH 2001. It was made to promote Valve's new Source engine at the time to create the game Half-Life 2. It consisted of a test sequence to highlight new technology created for the game and to test the NPCs and physics. The sequence was a real start of the game's development. The plot of the tech demo was unknown until a user named Pokemans123 emote Mark Laidlaw and got a response with the supposed script of Get Your Free TVs. It was confirmed that it involved citizens carrying TVs and running around trying to sell free TVs. There was also a fight scene at the end of the gameplay. The small map for this tech demo can be found in the WC map pack for Half-Life 2 beta under the name City Test, with several versions numbering to 03 to 09. Gibby. Gibby was a spin-off of the show iCarly. The pilot episode was filmed at Nickelodeon Studios on Sunset Boulevard. The actual episode title is Gibby at a Recreational Center. Episode began production in August 2012, however it did not get picked up by the network, and the premiere for the show was replaced with another spin-off, Sam and Cat. Not much is known about the pilot except a few pages of the script are available online, as well as some screenshots from production. The plot would follow Gibby getting a gig at a recreational center, where he winds up as a mentor to 4 middle school students. Cameraheads. Cameraheads is a creepypasta that was first posted on the Paranormal boards on August 8, 2009, of the site 4chan. The plot would follow a person who discovers a pile of rocks, a tape, and an envelope scattered on the ground. All the stuff would follow signs of struggle being indicated. Inside the envelope was a note that contained phrases saying, "I killed a camerahead, it took Trevor, and get help if I don't come back." The person uploads the contents of the cassette to YouTube and begins to research what happened and what the cameraheads are. The only existence of this creepypasta is a link to the video posted by a 4chan user which is related to the creepypasta in a thread discussing it. On October 19, 2020, a Lost Media Wiki user discovered an archive link to the creepypasta which had an RSS feed of the edits to the page of cameraheads. Pink Floyd Household Objects. Pink Floyd were an English rock band formed in 1965 in London. In 1973, Pink Floyd recorded an experimental album of the style of their earlier albums. The album Household Objects would use random household objects as instruments. The album was shelved after being recorded in October and December 1973. However, in 2011, 2 tracks from Household Object sessions, The Hard Way and Wineglasses, were released as part of Why Pink Floyd. This was included in the Dark Side of the Moon Immersion Edition and the Wish You Were Here Experience and Immersion releases. Sonic Movie Original Design. The Sonic the Hedgehog movie is an action comedy film based on the video game franchise of Sonic the Hedgehog. A teaser trailer in 2019 was released to the public showing a completely different design compared to the movie's final design. The design was later reworked due to controversy. The director of the movie, Jeff Fowler, stated, "It was pretty clear on that day of the trailer was released, just seeing the feedback and hearing the feedback, that the fans were not happy where we were at. It is unknown if the Sonic movie with the original design was ever finished due to these complaints." CatDog Saving Meme Bob. CatDog is an American animated series that aired on Nickelodeon from 1998 to 2005. A video game titled CatDog Saving Meme Bob was made as an adaptation of the Nicktoons for the original PlayStation. Not much is known about the game except that Robert Lamoreaux was involved when he was working on CatDog Quest for the Golden Hydrant, which was another video game adaptation for the series. The game was going to be published by Hasbro Interactive, who was also publishing Quest for the Golden Hydrant, but it is unknown if the game was completed, although a few screenshots of the game can be found online. There's also a Blockbuster page created for the game, along with a promotion in the media. Spider-Man 4. A sequel to Spider-Man 3 was planned by Sony Pictures as their 4th film in the Spider-Man film series. It was planned to be released on May 6, 2011. Production for the movie began in 2008 when James Vanderbilt was hired to pen a screenplay after contacting the screenplay for the first film. The script for this went in revision. The director wanted to show off a transformation of Chris Cotters into the Lizard, with Dylan Baker reprising his role. Unfortunately, this film was caught up in disagreements that kept it from being released on May 6, 2011 as planned. The director even said that the revisions of the script went through so much trouble that they still hated it. With these issues, Sony canceled the film in January 2010, even admitting to being exhausted from this development. The director wanted to make Spider-Man 4 better than Spider-Man 3. Even with this movie cancelled, a reboot was made which was released in 2012 titled The Amazing Spider-Man, with a new director in the position. Dr. Strangelove Pie Fight Ending. Dr. Strangelove is a comedy film produced in 1964 by Stanley Kubrick and stars Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Sterling Hayden, and Slim Pickens. The film is meant to show the Cold War fears of nuclear conflict between the Soviet Union and the United States. An alternate ending for the movie was filmed, which would follow a pie fight in the war room caused by the ambassador after trying to throw a pie at Turgidson. This ending was never added to the final film due to the film being filmed around the time that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. One of the lines in the ending would say, "Our president has been struck down in his prime," which was thought to be too offensive and close to the situation of the assassination of Kennedy. Kubrick also felt that the pie scene was not played in a serious tone like he intended. The ending was misplaced, and only a few stills of the scene are known to exist. The Shining Epilogue. The Shining is a horror film produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick based on Stephen King's 1977 novel of the same name. The film was released with 2 more minutes for an epilogue of the events. In this scene, Danny and Wendy are in a hospital recovering from Jack's assault, and the Overlook's manager arrives to check on them, shows remorse towards the trauma they suffered, and offers them a place at his Los Angeles home. The scene ends with Stuart throwing a yellow tennis ball to Danny. This cut premiered in Los Angeles and New York on numerous screens, and due to the urge to perfection, Kubrick had the scene cut due to him changing his mind. Copies of the scene were possibly destroyed, but it is unknown if this scene exists behind public eyes. Some photos, script, and credits are known material to exist for this epilogue. Final Fantasy VI. A tech demo unveiled at SIGGRAPH 1995, titled Final Fantasy VI, the interactive CG game, was shown off. This demo was for experimenting with developing next-gen consoles of the era. This resulted in a small playable demo showing off the then new technology. It has come to be officially known to others as Final Fantasy 64, which was the result of the rumor done in October of 1995 in Game Fan magazine. This issue stated that the demo was taken from an upcoming Final Fantasy game, possibly in development for the Nintendo 64. In 1996, the rumor was debunked, however, Squaresoft announced that Final Fantasy VII was being developed for the PlayStation. With that being said, Squaresoft's decision to develop for the PlayStation rather than Nintendo came about because of the storage capacity of CD-ROM discs, which were compared to the Nintendo 64 ROM cartridge. With all that happening, Squaresoft's ability to make the game was impeded to tell that kind of story that Final Fantasy VII ended up as. The only available content for this tech demo was footage of the tech demo from SIGGRAPH, however the playable demo is lost. Arwen. A spin-off for the TV series The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody titled Arwen was produced in 2007 and pitched to Disney. The series would have Brian Stepanek reprise his role as Arwen, who would live with his sister to help her take care of her kids. A brand new cast would have starred in the show, with the notable being Selena Gomez. Only one episode of the spin-off was filmed, although Disney decided to not pick it up for a series. A few clips of the pilot can be found online, however no script or photos have surfaced. Another reason for the series not being picked up is due to the 2007 Writers Guild of America strike. The strike led to the show and many others being cancelled. Selena Gomez was also offered to star in Wizards of Waverly Place, which led to scheduling conflicts. Bye Bye Beavers. The Angry Beavers is an American animated TV series that premiered on Nickelodeon from 1997 to 2001. A finale for the show was produced in 2001 but was scrapped due to controversy among the Nickelodeon staff. The plot would follow the Beavers receiving mail that their show is being cancelled, and the fourth wall would have been broken by them calling each other by their voice actors' names. At the end of the episode, they vanished before saying April Fools, implying that the episode was not the last episode. The reason for this episode not having a premiere was because it broke a Nickelodeon rule which stated that no final episode is allowed to show the fact that the show is ending. Neither segment from this episode was broadcasted, although rumors state that this episode aired in Australia and Europe. The audio of this episode would be released online during an interview with Richard Horvitz, who voiced Daggett in the series. It is unknown if any visuals for this episode were completed since they never turned up. However, the storyboard artist on this project leaked a few pages of the storyboard on her website.
Quantum Quest, a Cassini Space Odyssey. Quantum Quest, a Cassini Space Odyssey is the name of an animated film that was in collaboration between NASA and Digimax Studios. Planned to be an fictional, educational adaptation of the real-life mission of the Cassini. The film featured an all-star cast of voice actors including Mark Hamill, Samuel L. Jackson, Chris Pine, Tom Kenny, and Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong is well known for being a real-life astronaut, and his role in the film would have been marked as Neil's only work as an actor. The film had a budget of $10 million and went through a troubled development, with the cast going through drastic changes and the real-life Cassini being able to make a new discovery during the film's development, leading to the film's story being changed. Quantum Quest has never been released publicly and has only been screened in the Kentucky Science Center for 6 months. Only a trailer on YouTube and the film's website are the only parts of the film available today. Yellow Submarine Remake. The Beatles' Yellow Submarine was a planned CG animated remake based on the 1960s animated film of the same name. Announced in 2009 during the D23 Expo of that year, the film was going to be a collaboration between Disney and Image Movers Digital, with Robert Zemeckis as the film's director and writer. The film was planned to utilize motion capture which was used in Image Movers Digital's previous films, and would have incorporated 16 Beatles songs. The film was planned for a release near the 2012 Summer Olympics in London. However, the film never came out due to Disney closing down Image Movers Digital and abandoning the project as a whole in the same year of 2009. The animation studio's last film that got made after the studio's closure did poorly at the box office, being Mars Needs Mom. Throughout the years after the remake's cancellation, concept art and early work of footage has been found. Recently, Kitsu found 10 seconds of completed animation for the film that can be seen in archive.org. Halo DS. Halo DS is an unofficial DS version of the popular first-person shooter franchise by Bungie. The first mention of this project was in a IGN blog back in 2007 by Matt Casamassina, claiming that he had played a game known as Halo DS and it is fully playable and running. In a Silicon Era interview with Bungie employees Frank O'Connor and Brian Gerard, they claimed that Bungie has never funded or worked on an official DS version of Halo, leading to Frank stating that Matt's post was probably a prototype pitch to Nintendo that wasn't official. After the interview, Matt received backlash over faking the game's existence. he was able to make a follow-up blog confirming the game's existence further, with screenshots and footage of the gameplay running on the handheld. The blog details that the game was developed by an actual studio with a big publisher. It was lastly stated in the blog that the game was being worked on by a AAA company. The company who worked on Halo DS is unknown, and further info on the Lost DS project has never come out since. Some people have speculated that well-known company Electronic Arts was involved with Halo DS, citing evidence that Halo DS's gameplay shown was very similar to EA's work on the DS title GoldenEye Rogue Agent. BattleBots. BattleBots was a planned licensed video game based on the TV game show of the same name, being developed by Warthog Studios and published by THQ. The game was planned for Sony's PlayStation 2 and Nintendo GameCube release. The game would have featured 20 arenas and 40 playable robots, some made originally for the game and some that appeared in the actual show. The game went through the advanced stages of development and was almost ready for release, having the Nintendo seal of approval on the game's cover for the Nintendo GameCube version. However, the game was cancelled due to the original series' cancellation on TV. Prototypes of the game were available for hundreds of dollars online, and in 2015, during the run of the modern BattleBots series, Team Nightmare Combat robots were able to play the GameCube version in their hotel. However, they were caught by hotel security. After this event, the game hasn't been released till this day. Godzilla Kaiju Daiketsu. Godzilla Kaiju Daiketsu is a fighting game released on the Super Nintendo Famicom only in Japan. The game is centered on the iconic kaiju going against other kaijus in 2D battles. The game has received a cult following outside of Japan, even though it wasn't never officially localized by Toho. In a Nintendo Power issue, the game was shown off, officially planned to be localized as Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, with the subtitle of the game being a nod to one of Godzilla's classic films. According to Nintendo Power, the game was planned for a release in April of 1995. However, it was never seen again after its announcement. It is unknown why the game was never localized, and outside of its coverage on Nintendo Power, no images or footage have been released again. Boo! Borrow of Otherworldly Operations. Boo was an unreleased supernatural action animated comedy film being worked on by DreamWorks Animation. The cast included actors like Seth Rogen, Melissa McCarthy, and Bill Murray. The plot involved two bumbling apparitions as they enter an afterlife journey by joining Borrow of Otherly World Operations, shortly known as Boo, which is the Ghost World's counter-haunting force. The film was planned for a June 2015 release date, but was dropped from the slate to avoid competition with Disney Pixar's Inside Out, which was releasing very closely to Boo. The film still remains in development status till this day. It is unknown if DreamWorks will release the film, but it is unlikely. However, completed footage of the film has surfaced online, with some merchandise of the film also being found, alongside with Rotten Tomatoes scoring the film with a 63% rating. Casper the Musical. Casper the Musical was a live stage show based on the Friendly Ghost cartoon character of the same name. The stage show was running from December 4th, 1999 all the way through February 26, 2000, being performed at the Shaftesbury Theatre in London. Since the musical lasted a very short time, a home version of Casper the Musical has never been released. The album was recently found in early of 2021, listed on eBay, and the album was purchased and later uploaded on YouTube. As of recently, a 20-minute reel of the show was found by a Pink Octopede 64 and was uploaded by a user named Dalton. As of now, the full musical has never been fully found, and other information is very obscure to find online. Attack of the Killer Rabbits from Outer Space. Attack of the Killer Rabbits from Outer Space was a planned first-person shooter title by Ubisoft Montpellier, and was planned to be a dark horror-themed take of the Raving Rabbits for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the Wii U. The game's story would have been focused on the cousins of the Raving Rabbits, as the player would have taken control of the soldiers sent to take down the cousins. A variety of weapons would have been used, including firearms, electricity guns, and a ball saw launcher. The game would have also included a 4-player feature. The dev team loved the idea. Unfortunately, the title of the game had to be changed to take out the family-friendly rabbits from the mature title, and the title was changed to Attack of the Killer Freaks, and the Freaks' design changed into a reptilian-like monster. The game was revealed in E3 of 2011 as a Wii U launch title, and the reception from the gameplay footage shown was positively received. However, the dev team weren't satisfied with the project, as major issues were troubling the game's development, like the freaks being too small to shoot that you had to mostly shoot the ground to kill them. The devs also were having difficulty with the game's pace, especially on the upcoming Wii U platform at the time. The game was completely reworked as Zombie U for the Wii U's launch, and later got ported to other platforms. Only concept art, video, and screenshots of gameplay footage have been available online. No build of the game has ever surfaced. Pokemon Live. Pokemon Live was a stage show based on the Pokemon franchise from Nintendo. The show ran from September 2000 to January 2001. After the stage show run, it was completely forgot by the general public. Interest for the show, however, was revived in 2016 when YouTuber Chadtronic covered it on his video titled The Mystery of Pokemon Live. He was able to get in contact with the stage manager of the musical, Chris Mitchell, who recorded the entire 7-part show on YouTube but in low quality. Mitchell cites the lack of interest was the reason why Pokemon Live was a flop. He also confirmed a high-quality multi-camera recording was shot for a DVD release, which was announced in a promotional material. However, it never released due to unknown reasons, and it is confirmed to be locked in archives of the rights holders, meaning of course Nintendo. Mitchell has even tried to get a copy of the DVD release for himself, but the attempts were unsuccessful. Nick Arcade. Nick Arcade is a game show aired in the 1990s on Nickelodeon. The show has a history of lost episodes, even with the show having reruns until the end of 1997. Then, airing on the Nick Gas block, 20 episodes were claimed to be lost for a very long time. One of these episodes were found on iTunes, and another on Turbo Nick, which was Nick's online broadband channel. Another 5 were discovered via VHS recordings, and as of recently, the entire show was added on Paramount Plus, including all the lost episodes. Godzilla vs. Gamera. Godzilla vs. Gamera was a stage show created by Dai and Toho that took place at the Expos Festival Plaza during the Children Festival in the Osaka World's Fair in 1970. The show was performed once a night for 10 days. The plot has Godzilla and Gamera fighting against each other for the very first time. It was also detailed that other kaijus appeared in the show, including Manila, Jiger, Gorosaurus, and Space Gaios. Only a few images of the stage show exist, and there hasn't been any other recordings to ever surface. To be completely honest, due to the lack of other information for this piece, I think this might stay lost forever. Doraemon 73. Doraemon is a long-running anime series based on the manga of the same name. There have been 3 known adaptations of the character, one of them originally airing in 1973. The adaptation was produced by NTV Video and aired from April 1st, 1973 until September 30th, 1973, with 26 episodes being produced in total. Even though the series was well received in ratings and plans to extend the series for another year were being worked on, many problems from the studio were occurring during the run of the series. These include financial problems, a shift of a new president that didn't regard the anime very highly, and staff were unpaid for working on the show. NTV Video went bankrupt, which led to the cancellation of the series, and the reels to the series being sold off. Other belongings of the studio were thrown away in the garbage or destroyed. Reportedly, the studio organized a cremation fire and destroyed all the episodes due to their disapproval of the show. This has proven to be false and that the episodes are in archive storages. The show eventually was rebroadcast in 1979, however was short-lived to not create confusion with the other adaptations. Due to legal issues with the rights of the show, the preserved footage isn't allowed to be officially released to the public for the time being.
Call of Duty Roman Wars. According to a Games Radar report, Activision was toying with the idea of changing their formula of the Call of Duty franchise, which would include a new installment that would be set in ancient Rome and would have taken place in the height of Julius Caesar's reign over the Roman Empire. Apparently, the idea was proposed by Vicarious Visions. The game was planned to focus on third-person melee combat and had players take various military roles throughout the Roman Empire. Players would use a range of weapons like fire arrows and many other weapons that were relevant to the time period. Catapults would have been used against a large group of enemies, and you would have even had the option to ride on elephants. Call of Duty Roman Wars was in development for PC, PS3, and Xbox 360, with PS4 and Xbox One ports being under consideration as well. However, only one level was completed before Activision rejected the project. Afterwards, the game was later pitched to Ubisoft as simply Roman Wars, but suffered the same fate. The only footage of the game that can be found is a small gameplay video and some screenshots. The Neopets movie. In 2006, a Variety article claimed that a planned CGI movie based on Neopets was in the works. The animated feature is planned to be produced by Warner Brothers with director John A. Davis, Rob Lieber as the screenwriter, and Dylan Sellers as the producer. Neopets actually teased the film in their minigame page for Jelly Blobs of Doom, where it mentioned that the film was planned for a winter 2006 release, but it was later altered in 2012, stating that the film would be released in 20XX. Little information is known about the film's whereabouts. The film was likely never produced since at the time of the film's announcement, Viacom had purchased the rights to Neopets. Kids' Choice Awards. In recent years, fully broadcasted recordings of the Kids' Choice Awards have been increasingly difficult to find. A thread in the Lost Media Wiki forums was made in early 2020 on the issue, and it claimed that fully recorded events of the Kids' Choice Awards from 1989 to 1996 are completely lost. In addition, broadcasts from 2001, 2003, and 2008 to 2016 are considered lost as well. However, some parts of the recent Kids' Choice Awards from 2013 and 2016 have been available thanks to the Kids' Choice Awards in a Nutshell meme video series on Vimeo. Alice in Wonderland Original Draft. Before the release of one of Disney's most iconic films in 1951, development of Disney's Alice in Wonderland went all the way back to 1938. The early draft contained artwork from David Hall, which presented a more gritty and dark design than what we got in the final version. The huge differences between the draft and the later film included Wonderland being too monstrous and difficult to animate. Its inhabitants were more aggressive towards Alice, one of which being where Alice gets attacked by the Mad Hatter. Walt Disney decided to turn the draft down in favor of the more light-hearted version that we all know and love today. The only remaining piece of this lost draft is in a book called Walt Disney's Surprise Package, which included 30 of Hall's illustrations. However, this book has become really hard to find. In 1995, the Archive Collection Laserdisc included an incomplete recreation of the animatic for the film that can be found online. The songs for the draft were released on a separate disc, and some are published in Disney's Lost Chords. Disney Xtreme Digital. This was an online network from Disney.com that was available in the late 2000s. The network was known for including exclusive content. Kids could make their own profiles and customize them with different widgets. Users could also visit channels based on different characters. The Muppets had a rather large presence on the network, with many channels and character pages about them, along with various videos and games. The Muppets website at one point redirected users to DxD instead. The site features were removed in February of 2011 for an unknown reason. Most of the content from the site has been lost for years, and not much is known as to where it could be. Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. Once Upon a Time in Shaolin is a rap album created by the Wu-Tang Clan. The album was one of the last Wu-Tang Clan albums to ever be made featuring every living member at the time. The album's development lasted 6 years and was recorded secretly, and only one copy was pressed. The one copy of the album was barred from commercial distribution for 88 years, seemingly a reference to the group's association of the number 8 and the many variants of it. The reason for this choice was to make the album feel more like art from the Renaissance era. However, leader of the Wu-Tang Clan, RZA, intended the album to be played at many events around the country. Unfortunately, the album was auctioned off for $2 million to an entrepreneur named Martin Shkreli, making it the most expensive album ever sold. Before that, the album was played at MoMA PS1 for 154 people on March 2, 2015. However, there were no recordings made of the event, since security confiscated attendees' cell phones beforehand. Martin was forced to sign a contract to not commercially exploit the album, even though he was free to play it at parties or other events, or even upload it online with no charge, or even physically sell it until the year 2103. Martin only played the intro of the album once, during Donald Trump's win of the United States 2016 presidential election. On March 9, 2018, though, Shkreli was sentenced to 7 years in prison after being arrested by the FBI and charged with securities fraud. He forfeited the album to the United States Justice Department, and it is unknown what will happen now with the album in the government's hands. Two members of the Wu-Tang Clan, Method Man and Ghostface Killah, demanded the album be returned to them during an appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. As of now, snippets of the album are available online, but it's very difficult to know which ones belong to what song. Epic Mickey 3. Epic Mickey 3 was the planned third installment to the Epic Mickey game series. Warren Spector always had plans to create an Epic Mickey trilogy as well as some spin-off games. He also claimed that he already had an idea for the story in mind. Warren stated that the musical numbers from the sequel Epic Mickey The Power of Two were a test for Epic Mickey 3. The game would have been a musical with large numbers throughout the game. Warren also claimed that he wanted to make the multiplayer bigger than the previous game. These plans fell apart completely on January 29, 2013, when it was announced that Junction Point Studios was officially closed down by the Walt Disney Company, canceling that sequel and all other games that were in production at the time. The only material we have from Epic Mickey 3 is the final scene in the second game, a segment that shows Pete and his army of different versions of himself being the next main antagonist. Concept art was released though, showing how Pete would have been in the game and Hortensia being a playable character. Cartoon Network City Bumpers. In June 2004, Cartoon Network began a new rebrand for their channel, which included a new logo and a set of bumpers which included characters from the Cartoon Network shows at the time living in the same city. In April 2006, the bumpers got a revamp with dark yet flat psychedelic colors and a new male announcer. It was presumably supposed to go along with Cartoon Network's Yes campaign that was going on at the time. These bumpers continued until June of 2007. Many can be found online, with the ones from 2004-2006 being common, but bumpers from 2006 to 2007 are very rare and are mostly lost. Dinoblocks. Before being known as the juggernaut game Roblox, the game was originally known as Dinoblocks, but the name seemed to change since Dinoblocks was harder to remember. After the name change, Roblox was released to the public. Old builds of the game before the 2010s would be completely lost to time. The reason is because developers of Roblox would often move their servers and remove old content. In 2012, an installer for the 2008 build of Roblox was discovered and posted in a Tumblr blog. After speculation grew on whether any other old builds exist, Roblox removed older versions of the game from c5.roblox.com. It wasn't until 2015 when Roblox developer Clone Trooper 1019 recovered old builds of Roblox from 2009 that can be downloaded on their GitHub page. Clone had also found a broken build from 2007 and 2016. A year after that, another broken build was discovered with screenshots originating from 2006. A user by the name of WePlay123 found a Google page in Roblox from 2005, which detailed more of the game with some screenshots. Carnival of Light. This is probably one of the Beatles' most known unreleased song. It was recorded for an event in London, the Million Volt Light and Sound Rave. The song is said to have distorted, echo-laden sounds of percussion, keyboards, guitar, and vocals. The song was 14 minutes long and contained Paul McCartney and John Lennon screaming out random phrases like, "Are you alright?" and "Barcelona." Outside of the band, only a few people have heard the song, like Mark Lewisohn, who was allowed to hear it while working on his book, The Complete Beatles Recording Sessions. McCartney's biographer, Barry Miles, has also heard the song, claiming that it had no rhythm. McCartney himself has tried multiple times to release Carnival of Light to the public. However, George Harrison voted against it. Paul still has the song in his possession and he wants to release it, but he needs approval in order to do so. Pre-Rick Rubin Yeezus. This one refers to the development of Kanye West's album Yeezus in its early version. The rough cut contains 16 songs and is planned to be 3.5 hours long, according to Yeezus' producer Rick Rubin. Rubin was asked by Kanye to help get the album ready for release. After Rubin heard the rough cut of the album, he originally thought it was planned to be released next year, but that wasn't the case. The producer spent 2 hectic weeks helping West shape the album to meet a deadline that was a mere 5 weeks away, which led to the album being trimmed, tremendously. In an interview with the Daily Beast, Rick Rubin states that there might be a second half of Yeezus planned to be released, and there is also a listing for Yeezus' lost tapes on Kanye West's legal papers. However, nothing else has come out about the lost half of the album.
Splat. Splat was a children's television series that aired on Canadian channel Teletoon between 1999 and 2000. Its primary focus was educating its young viewers about the animation process. In total, 52 episodes were produced. Among the most fascinating elements of Splat was their ability to feature behind-the-scenes footage of well-known animators such as Hanna-Barbera and Klasky Csupo on the show. Splat was ultimately aired in over 100 countries, though is now almost completely lost. This is likely due to copyright issues from featuring various studios and their properties on the program. As of the recording of this video, only the intro, end credits, and various clips in languages like Spanish and French have been found. The Adventures of Pinocchio. The Adventures of Pinocchio was almost the first Italian animated movie and would have predated Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs if it were finished. The film was directed by Raul Verdini and Umberto Spano. This film was very ambitious for its time, having a budget of 1 million euros and a goal of creating 110,000 frames per year. Ultimately, The Adventures of Pinocchio's production ran into problems with its development as well as budget. Due to this, all the progress made was scrapped. The only confirmed remains are a few still images, a script, and a book based on the film. There are rumors of the animation being stored in the archives of the American Study, though this claim is yet to be validated. The Moxie Show. Airing between 1993 and 2000, The Moxie Show was an animated anthology series that aired classic cartoons during its broadcasts on Cartoon Network. Also known as The Moxie and Flea Show, as well as The Moxie Pirate Show, this was Cartoon Network's first original animated show. The animation was originally done by Colossal Pictures. This studio created CG animation for the show until 1998 when the art transitioned to a traditional 2D style. After the show ended in 2000, reruns also stopped airing that same year. Since then, very little has surfaced of the show and it remains partially lost. The Lazy Dance. Lazy Town is a children's television show that aired on Nick Jr. from 2004 to 2014. Having been the first episode of Lazy Town produced, supposedly in 2002, the Lazy Dance unfortunately went unfinished due to technical problems. The episode is said to involve the town celebrating Stephanie's half-birthday with a dance party, which causes dismay to Sporticus as he doesn't know how to dance. Having been the pilot episode of Lazy Town, this episode would have likely had various differences to the show that eventually aired. Various images of the episode exist online. The Rimini Riddle. This Irish puppet show aired from 1992 to 1995 for a total of 3 seasons. Despite its 3-year run, the entirety of the show's plot still remains unknown. What is known is that the show involved 3 orphans, Rory, Leo, and Ellen, who moved to their Aunt Vera's guest house, known as the Rimini Guest House. Regardless of being a show involving puppetry and intended for children, the Rimini Riddle is said to have featured various mature story arcs as it explored the mystery of the Rimini house. The search for the show has been active since the year 2008, and not much has surfaced since then, as the Rimini Riddle never received a home video release. Despite that, a few clips and even a full episode have been recovered. King of the Hill on Fox Kids. In February of 1998, Fox Kids aired a bizarre collaboration with the adult cartoon King of the Hill. These segments reused footage from King of the Hill as the characters of the show interacted with various characters from various cartoons airing on Fox Kids at the time. There's been a lot of speculation regarding what characters were featured in these shorts, as well as how many shorts actually exist. So far, only 2 of these shorts have been recovered, in addition to a still image of a Mother's Day promo including Peggy Hill. There has also been speculation about whether or not clean, family-friendly edits of King of the Hill episodes also exist. This is merely speculation and unconfirmed. Pac-Man World 4. Pac-Man World is a series of 3D platformer games involving characters from the Pac-Man video game series. There have been 3 released entries in the series that have been made available on both home and portable game consoles. A fourth entry in the series was intended for release on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and is said to have been in development between the years 2008 and 2010. While Pac-Man World 4 never saw an official public announcement, a concept trailer created by a former animator on the project was discovered. The game itself appears similar in nature to the previous Pac-Man World games. Bioman. Almost a decade before the popular Japanese tokusatsu series Super Sentai was localized as Power Rangers, there existed another incarnation. Choudenshi Bioman aired in Japan from 1983 to 1984. It was in 1986 when Haim Saban obtained the rights to Super Sentai and planned to adapt the show for an American audience, simply calling it Bioman. A pilot for Bioman was created, though ultimately never aired. In 1993, Saban adapted a completely different Sentai series, Kyoru Sentai Zyurenja. This is what we know today as the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. While Bioman currently remains lost, various still images exist. Clips of the Bioman pilot were also repurposed in a 1992 promotional video by Saban titled Galaxy Rangers. The Hannah Montana anime. Around the year 2010, Japanese animation studio Toei had plans to adapt the popular Disney Channel series Hannah Montana into an anime series. This was vaguely confirmed by a thread on Daisen Shu EX, a Japanese forum primarily dedicated to Dragon Ball content, another anime produced by Toei. Very little is known about this project other than the fact that it had been cancelled early on in development. King Koopa's Cool Cartoons. Based around the American cartoon Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which in turn is based on the Super Mario Bros. Video game series, King Koopa's Cool Cartoons was a live-action children's show produced locally for KTTV 11 Los Angeles. It aired solely within Southern California and was developed by a man named Jerry Pass, who worked in coordination with Deke Animation City in addition to Nintendo themselves. The show is known to have aired during the channel's Fox Kids block during the afternoons and had a brief run during the holiday season of late 1989 and early 1990. The show would air cartoons within its 30-minute broadcasts and give away various prizes to the children in the audience. In total, 60 episodes were produced. It is unknown what led to the show's brief run and cancellation. Currently, only the intro, credits, and a few clips have been recovered. Dingo Pictures. Dingo Pictures, probably best known for that animation with the Yi dinosaur, is a German animation company that was established in 1992. During their years active, the studio produced over 30 films, most of which having questionable quality. The animations have been released on DVD, many of them receiving an English dub. Some of the releases are quite rare, and there have been dedicated efforts to find all of Dingo's productions. As of right now, all of Dingo's films are believed to have been found.
Hot Chunks. This series of shorts originated from Nickelodeon Australia between 1998 and 2000. Officially titled Disadventures of Hot Chunks, these 13-minute shorts themselves are not actually lost, but rather a mysterious live-action show hosted by a man named Angus Keane is actually what's sought after. It is stated via a Reddit post that Hot Chunks had originally been attached to the show, though there is very little information online validating this claim. Available information referencing Keene's very show includes a 2021 r/Lost Media post, brief mentions through various Nickelodeon wiki articles, an unconfirmed tweet by someone who claimed to work on the show, and this recently discovered clip. The show's existence has yet to be confirmed, though it is quite possible that the show does exist in different versions and cuts. Felix the Cat shorts. Before we had Mickey Mouse, we had Felix the Cat. From the late 1910s to the 1920s, there are a total of 26 shorts made by Paramount before being passed over by another company. Because Mickey Mouse was more popular than Felix the Cat, Felix fell out of popularity and falling into obscurity. Sometime around the 1950s, the shorts were obtained by an unknown television station to put in sounds for the shorts to air on television. Since then, the shorts remained lost, and it's unknown how many shorts exist to this day. Although there are some collectors that claim that they have some of the missing Felix the Cat shorts, but that hasn't been proven and can be debunked as fake. Pokemon launch event onto Pikachu. In 1998, during the launch of Pokemon Yellow in the West, the city of Topeka, Kansas was renamed to Pikachu. 20 years later, the same event occurred to celebrate the launch of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Apparently for the 1998 event, footage was recorded and was made available to the public. Little information is known about the footage existence. Only 2 articles in r/lost media discusses the topic as the only known proof of the footage's existence. There is one post showing a screenshot from the footage that seems to originate from Teletoons Retro, but no hard evidence has come out ever since. Walt Disney's performance as Mickey Mouse. During the development of the 1939 animated Mickey Mouse short The Pointer, Walt Disney actually performed as Mickey Mouse as an animation reference. During his performance, he would stay in character, act out, and move out his characters' personalities. His team thought his performance was funny and they even asked him if they could record him acting out. Disney accepted the request, but only if the cameras were far away from him. Walt was embarrassed that he refused to do something like that ever again. For a while, animators tried to find the footage of his performance, but they were unsuccessful. Fist of the North Star. Based on the Shonen Jump manga series of the same name by Tetsuo Hara, this manga counterpart is well known for containing heavy violence. Toei Animation toned the content in their anime adaptation so it would be suitable for television. It wasn't until 1986 when Toei released the movie adaptation based off a few story arcs of the manga, and made it faithful to the main source material by using hardcore violence. The animators even studied the human body in order to make the gore as realistic as possible. Following massive outcry of complaints and protests due to the ultra-violent content in the film, the Diet of Japan called out Toei and demanded the film to be censored. Toei was able to censor the film's gore by having it either removed, blurred, or tinted for a home video release. Ever since the incident, the theatrical version of the film has never resurfaced and has been rumored to be destroyed by Toei, which is unconfirmed. Many have questioned the film's regard of their censorship. Some VHS versions of the Italian version of the film still contain some uncensored gore scenes which was released onto YouTube. In mid-2015, the Charles Theater in Baltimore, Maryland posted on their official website that they would be screening the indefinite uncensored film on September 23rd of the same year. No footage of this specific screening exists, and the post was taken down shortly after the event ended. The Skyway Man. This was the name of a documentary film in 1920 about stunt flights which was produced by Fox Film Corporation. The film is well known for its breathtaking stunt and a terrible tragedy that happened on set. On August 20, 1920, one stunt was being filmed at night for the film. Floodlights are used to help guide the 2 pilots performing the stunt, whose names being Omar Luckier and Milton Elliott. Flares were attached to the wings to simulate an illusion for the film that the planes were on fire. The 2 pilots were instructed to turn off the lights, but they refused. As a result, the pilots crashed to the ground, killing both of them. Lucklier's girlfriend was on set the whole time and witnessed his death. The death footage and her reaction were recorded and kept in the final film. No footage of the film is known to exist today, and only production stills and photos of the crash still exist. Reportedly, a film series known as Traces of Death attempt to find the footage, but only to come out empty-handed. Cartoon Orbit. Cartoon Orbit was an online card trading system hosted by Cartoon Network's website from October 2000 to October 2006. The main focus of Orbit was to trade C-Tunes, which were stickers of characters from Cartoon Network shows that aired at the time. Users could put them in a room known as C-Zones. There were also special C-Tunes that were used for holidays and other special events, and they would also be available during Cartoon Friday broadcasts. G-Tunes were also added for head-to-head strategy games later on its run before Orbit was closed on October 2006. Even though the service is long gone, information of it has been documented and archived, with the remake of Cartoon Orbit being in the works. Sonic: Wonders of the World. Before the Hedgehog got its live film adaptation in 2020, there has been multiple attempts to bring the Hedgehog to the big screen. One of the first attempts being Sonic the Hedgehog: Wonders of the World. The film's plot would have been a 12-year-old boy named Josh who tries to write about Sonic for his school paper. He uses his father's greatest invention to help him connect his Sega Saturn with a copy of Sonic Xtreme with the invention. However, the invention goes haywire as Sonic jumps out of the game into the real world. Dr. Robotnik also jumps out of the game and becomes the film's main antagonist. It is up to Josh to team up with Sonic the Hedgehog and search for the Chaos Emeralds and stop Robotnik. The film was planned to be released in the 1990s, where the heights of Sonic popularity arise. Studio MGM and Trilogy Entertainment signed a deal with Sega to create the film. Richard Jefferies was tasked to write the film. The Upperworlds loved the script, but the only con was Robotnik being the film's antagonist. Jefferies decided to change the villain, but unfortunately, it was already too late. Apparently, the two companies weren't able to come to an agreement and stay on the same page. Richard's last effort to bring the film to life was to shop the script around to other studios. He later got in contact with DreamWorks Animation, however that deal fell apart as Sega wanted a huge amount of money for the rights of the character, while DreamWorks wanted a lower price. As a result, the film was never made. Only the script for the film exists, but it hasn't surfaced to the public.
Great Temptations. Great Temptations was an Australian game show airing from 1970 to 1975, hosted by the legendary Tony Barber. The show was based on the American game show Sale of the Century, but they had to go with the name Great Temptations because they couldn't get the rights to Sale of the Century. But Australia would eventually get their own version in 1980. All of these shows had 3 contestants answering trivia questions to win dollars that they could exchange for prizes. The winner of each episode would either choose to return to play again next week or take home a grand prize. While the show as a whole is easy to find online, there is one episode that no one has ever seen. The very existence of this lost episode wasn't widely known about until a 2016 interview with Tony Barber on Today Extra. According to Tony, during the taping of the episode, after winning the show, a contestant named Valerie slumped over unconscious, prompting the studio to be cleared and doctors called. Barber went backstage while she was being attended to, later asking the floor manager for an update on her status. In his own words, I said, "How is she? She seemed passed out." And the floor manager's response? "Tony, she passed on." It was awful and very upsetting for everyone there. Taping of the episode obviously stopped, and the episode was never aired. The cause of Valerie's death has never been disclosed, and it's not even known when the episode was filmed during the show's 7-season run. The footage is probably reused for the tape, as was common practice at the time, meaning this lost episode of Great Temptations is probably lost forever. The Apollo 11 tapes. The 1969 moon landing is among mankind's greatest accomplishments, the culmination of generations of the planet's greatest minds broadcast live for the world to see. I've seen the moon landing footage, you've seen the moon landing footage, so how can it be lost? Well, that grainy footage is not the original high-quality footage fed to NASA from the moon. When the live feed was broadcast from the moon to NASA, this format wasn't compatible with TV broadcasting at the time. So the greatest minds of the era band together to devise a way to broadcast this high-quality signal to millions across the globe. Just kidding. They pointed a TV camera at the projection of the live feed and called it a day. The same people who got a man to the moon just videotaped a screen, like some kid trying to show gameplay footage without a capture card. This obviously resulted in a much lower resolution being sent to the general public. But this original footage was stored in NASA's vaults. For a while. It's believed that years later, when NASA was recording footage from their satellites that were in orbit, they reused old tape from their archives, including the original high-quality moon landing footage, thus forever fueling the fire that the moon landing was a hoax. The surviving footage has been remastered, but will forever be inadequate to the film that they carelessly lost. The 1995 Robot Wars UK Open. Before the brilliantly entertaining robot combat show Robot Wars aired in 1998, it had a pilot episode to pitch the competition to network executives. In hindsight, the show seems like a slam dunk. We're talking fighting robots. Who wouldn't want to see fighting robots? Well, I guess some of the higher ups at the BBC. Robot Wars events had been held for years, and in 1995, at the Robot Wars UK Open tournament, they filmed a pilot hoping to launch a TV series. The episode featured both amateur and professional roboteers making and controlling their own robots in head-to-head combat with contestants from the UK and the US. In attendance at the London filming was Michael Jackson, the British TV executive, of course. Who were you thinking? By all accounts, the event was a success. The crowd and executives alike were thrilled at the soccer event in particular, and Michael Jackson promised a Robot Wars TV series to air on BBC Two. But these plans fell through when Michael Jackson moved to BBC One, and his replacement, Alan Yentob, was not impressed with the Robot Wars concept. I guess he doesn't like cool shit. And the show never moved forward. A Robot Wars series would finally come to fruition in 1997 when Yentob moved to a different position in BBC, being replaced with Mark Thompson, who pushed for the series. The next year, Robot Wars aired on BBC Two, running for hundreds of episodes over the next 2 decades. Today, only clips of the 1995 Robot Wars UK Open are known to exist. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, 1982. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is considered the largest parade in the world and has been running every Thanksgiving since 1924, coming up on 100 years now. Though the parade was broadcast live on TV since 1939, early events weren't recorded because the technology just wasn't there. Because of how old these broadcasts are, nearly every parade before 1980 is completely lost. Only the 1959 and 1976 parades have been found in their entirety. In the 80s, as home recording tech became mainstream, every single Macy's Day Parade has been found, with the exception of the 1982 airing. The most frustrating part about this missing parade is that we know someone has a recording. This is exactly the kind of thing your grandparents would record on their VCR. Someone has to have it. And it turns out someone does. Of the handful of clips circulating the internet of this lost parade, one is of Tennessee's Clinton High School Marching Band, uploaded by Amy Jeffers, who claims to have the entire parade on tape. But in her YouTube video, she recorded the performance NASA style with a camcorder pointed at the TV, so either she doesn't have the tech to upload the parade or doesn't know how to. The 1982 parade is notable for a few reasons. It was the debut of Olive Oyl and the debut of Woody Woodpecker, who would remain a mainstay of the event for the next decade. And the parade would mark the final public appearance of Will Lee, who played Mr. Hooper on Sesame Street since its inception. He would be hospitalized days after the parade and die in December. So check your attics for this one. I know someone has to have a copy of the 1982 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Early Super Bowls. The Super Bowl is the biggest sporting event in America, and is consistently one of the most watched TV broadcasts. Of the 30 most viewed broadcasts of all time, various Super Bowls occupy 28 of the 30 top slots. So it's hard to believe that there is a lost Super Bowl. Super Bowl I, then known as the AFL-NFL World Championship game, was between the Green Bay Packers and Kansas City Chiefs, with Green Bay coming out on top. The match was filmed and would later become a historical moment in American sports and culture, but would never again air in its entirety outside of the occasional highlight. Even the NFL believed the game was lost, but in 2016, they were able to cobble together the entire game from their massive archives, and aired the game 49 years later. Though this footage is missing some player introductions and a post-game locker room chat between Pat Summerall and Pete Rozelle. This was a major achievement for lost media discovery. But while the NFL gave major attention to Super Bowl I, they have done little in the way to find its follow-up, Super Bowl II. This 1968 game would see the return of the Green Bay Packers, who would come out on top against the Oakland Raiders. For years after the game, only stills exist, coming from the January 1969 edition of Sports Illustrated. It's rumored that the NFL was working on a restoration of the game that they found in their vaults, but this has since been denied. In 2013, a reconstruction of the game appeared on YouTube, made up of stills, video snippets, but more importantly, the entire unedited audio of the game's radio broadcast. How they got a hold of this audio is still a mystery. I personally think it's unlikely that the NFL will restore this game. The only reason they did it for Super Bowl I is because it's the first and considered easier to market, leading me to believe that Super Bowl II might remain lost forever. Barbara Lowe. Game shows breed lost media. The legendary game show Jeopardy is no exception, with a handful of lost episodes over its nearly 60-year run. But one of the most infamous lost episodes centers around the antics of one Barbara Lowe. Barbara appeared on the show in 1986 and immediately stuck out as a bit odd, reportedly bouncing and fidgeting behind the podium, behavior at odds with the professional nature of the show. In one notable instance, when asked to provide the two infamous college students defended by Clarence Darrow, Barbara responded, "Who are Leopold and Lieb?" Alex Trebek told her response was wrong, but Barbara clapped back, "Lieb is just the German pronunciation of Loeb." Trebek, being the kind-hearted saint he is, awarded Barbara the points without question. This is a major faux pas in the game. Contestants are never to interject during taping. They're meant to inform staff backstage of any mistakes, never interrupting the show. She was also elated when other contestants got questions wrong. But this wasn't one isolated episode. Barbara Lowe reigned for 5 episodes, but ended up quitting undefeated with $50,000, about $120,000 today. This is because viewers called in and wrote to the show complaining about her unprofessional behavior, leading the showrunners to remove her. But because of her success, she qualified for that year's Tournament of Champions. But the plot thickens when it was discovered that Barbara appeared in around 7 other game shows under different names, even toting different social security numbers. This was in direct violation of the show's terms and agreements, requiring contestants to disclose if they had ever been in any other game shows in the last 5 years. In response, Jeopardy refused to pay Barbara for her earnings, and she sued Jeopardy over the withheld money. They backed down and paid her, probably to avoid bad publicity, but she was not allowed to return for the Tournament of Champions. Ever since, the 5 episodes Barbara appeared on have never been re-aired. It's rumored that the tapes even exist in the Jeopardy vaults, labeled not for rerun. But in the 80s, home recording tech was readily available. You know your grandparents were recording Jeopardy on VHS. So it's entirely possible that these 5 episodes are currently sitting in someone's attic, waiting to be discovered, or rotting away until the day they're thrown away and lost forever. There are a few clips of Barbara on the internet from her time on Jeopardy, but the full tapes remain elusive.
Just like Mr. Sunny. On December 4th, 1983, Disney supposedly released a film titled Just Like Mr. Sunny. It was apparently the second Disney Channel original movie after Tiger Town. Despite this, there is very little information about the film online. No plot synopsis, no names attached to the project, not even a VHS cover. Its only mentions are on Reddit, the Disney Wiki, and its forums, where one user attempted to watch every Disney movie before stumbling across this mystery. The general consensus is that this film simply doesn't exist. SpongeBob Invader Pants / Krabs' Army. During the 9th season of SpongeBob SquarePants, 2 episodes were planned to be released, but were scrapped sometime during development. They were titled SpongeBob Invader Pants and Krabs' Army, and can even be seen in Nickelodeon's programming schedule around 2014. When asked, series producer Vincent Waller stated that the episodes never made it past storyboards. However, some of them have leaked online in very low quality, making the writing illegible. Supposedly, the plot for SpongeBob Invader Pants would have involved SpongeBob and his friends encountering alien life, but this is merely speculation. Nothing about Krabs' Army has ever been discovered. Don Bluth's Ice Age. Ice Age is a classic comedy film from the early 2000s, developed by Blue Sky Studios, but it wasn't always like this. The story goes that Ice Age was originally meant to be much more serious, akin to The Land Before Time. It was supposed to be hand-drawn instead of CGI animated, and developed by Don Bluth and Fox Animation Studios, who at the time were working on Tie-In AE. However, since that movie bombed at the box office, Fox Animation Studios rejected the project, and it made its way to Blue Sky Studios. Not much else is known about the project, and there is no confirmation of its existence. It only has small mentions on different websites like IMDb, TV Tropes, and Wikipedia, which has since been deleted. Titanic recordings. The RMS Titanic was, at the time, one of the largest and most advanced luxury cruise ships ever made. Carrying over 2,200 passengers, the ocean liner was to travel from Southampton to New York City in April of 1912. Yet, it would never reach its destination. A few days after its departure, the ship infamously struck an iceberg and sank to the bottom of the ocean. More than 1,500 of its passengers died, and it became one of the deadliest and most well-known disasters in history. Despite its notoriety, footage of the Titanic itself is extremely rare. Plenty of photos exist online, but video is notoriously scarce. Likewise, proof of lost Titanic footage is also rare. After all, cameras were less common in 1912. However, given the technological achievement of the Titanic, and how many wealthy first-class passengers were on board the ship, many assume that there must be more footage out there. The Q source. As someone who is not an expert on biblical studies, here is the simplest description of the Q source that I can find online. Basically, of the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Matthew and Luke both contain parts of Mark, which suggests that they pulled from Mark. However, Matthew and Luke also both contain content that isn't from Mark, suggesting that they got it from a different source. This missing source is known as the Q source, which is currently lost and hypothetical. This image helps visualize the theory. Scholars have debated over the existence of the Q source for a while, making it, in my opinion, one of the most unique pieces of lost media, if it exists, of course. Egghead. This piece of lost media is incredibly obscure, but there is some evidence for its existence. On June 10th, 2021, a post was made onto the lost media subreddit about a mysterious 2009 documentary called Egghead. The post reads, quote, "A friend of mine was talking to me recently about a weird experience where he was pulled aside by a guy to film an interview for a quote-unquote documentary. They said that they kept being asked questions about animals, which was weird. Did a little digging in the old memory, and we figured out that the thing was called Egghead, from circa 2009. There's a completely empty IMDb page, and all the actors. I can't find anything on. So if anyone has anything, we would love to actually see this thing." And there is indeed an IMDb page for this documentary, but that's all there is. The page is almost completely empty, and there is no further information about Egghead. Yeah, Beavis 1. Perhaps one of the most well-known pieces of lost media in the existence unconfirmed category, Yeah, Beavis 1 is a mysterious game that appeared in multiple listings from June 1989 to January 1990. What's odd is that, in many, if not all of the listings, the game is wrongly alphabetized. Furthermore, in an issue of Funko, the game was shortened to just Yeah, Beavis 1. Since then, no game titled Yeah, Beavis 1 or anything similar has ever been released. Yet there are several theories. The most common theory being that Yeah, Beavis is a copyright trap. Because the game doesn't exist, its sole purpose could be to simply expose those who copy this list. Another theory suggests that Yeah, Beavis 1 was a mistranslation of a game that does exist. What that game is has been the subject of much debate. Then there are those who believe that the game simply was never released. But if that's the case, what was this game supposed to be? How have we not heard any information about this game besides those few listings?
Hey everyone, Seeker here. If you stuck around this long, thank you. This project was a labor of love for everyone involved, and I couldn't have done it without the following people who contributed to the Iceberg and helped this project become a reality. Sakura Stardust, Kait's Place, the Shy Narwhal, SewerReviewer, LSuperSonicQ, Blame It on Jorge, mrkingharvey, Ultra Crist, All Things Lost, RedBoiPaul for contributing a section and also for designing the thumbnail for the video, and last but certainly not least, Rift for editing the Iceberg live as we all threw out suggestions and topic ideas to him. Once again, thanks for watching everyone, and I hope we can do another massive collaboration like this again one day.